had my first hotel room in the Gotham Hotel. I took my first orders, and they were very tiny orders. They were 12 of this and 6 of this and 20 of this. And I then went back to the factory with my orders that I was so proud of. And he said, I can't do that. I can't make, I mean, I have a factory. I don't have a sample room. There is no way I can make them. And I would cry and I would beg and I would do whatever I want. And he said, okay. And he would try to do it. And then I would get shipped. And of course, when I got shipped, I did not know that you had to have the content of the fabric in English, and it was half silk. Seta, I had to cross. I went to the airport in the warehouse, and it was cold, and I had to cross the Italian words and write English words. And then the packages came in, and what I ordered in red came in blue, and when it was a size 12, it was a size 8, and I shipped it all wrong. But because my order was very small, and I was very lucky, whatever I sold through. And so the next time around, 6 months later, when I would show again in that same hotel, they bought a little more. And then came Bloomingdale's, and there was a big order. And they were talking about windows and ads, and I had no idea what they're talking about. And I wasn't prepared. But you pretend that you know, and you pretend that you know, and then you don't know, and then you do know because you throw yourself into it. And of course, I was young and I was kind of pretty. And so they asked me if I would model for the clothes to do the ad, which was great because then I didn't have to pay for the model. So I did that. And 2 years happened. 2 years went by where I did everything. I didn't have an office. I did everything out of my dining room, going back and forth in Italy, begging to be made, and this and that. 2 years into it, I realized that there was a little traction, that I had something, but I really needed professional help. Don't be embarrassed by wanting to learn. Don't be embarrassed to go to somebody and say, can you please teach me? Or can you please go me? So you have to be very, very open-minded and create your network and create the weave, weave the people that you meet, weave the people that you can connect with into a fabric which will be the fabric of your life. I had a lawyer, and I asked him to find me which are the 3 of the leading 7th Avenue firms that have many lines. And he came up with 3 names. The third man, Johnny Pomerantz from Leslie Fay, he was very nice to me. And he said to me, listen, you don't need us. All you need is to find a salesman, and you take a showroom on 7th Avenue, and that's it. I said, I don't know any salesman. Do you know anybody? And he said, let me think about it and come back in a week. And a week later, I came back, and he introduced me to this man called Richard Conrad. And he looked at the clothes, and he didn't really understand it. But I was very smart because I made some men's shirt for him in the fabric and in the print. So he could feel, because what was wonderful about those dresses is the way they felt. They felt soft and nice. So he then understood the value of it. But what this man had, he was a great salesman, and he had a lot of friends, buyers. So he brought in a lot of buyers in the showroom, and they made a lot of orders. By 1976, I was on the cover of Newsweek, of the Wall Street Journal, of Interview magazine, and I was selling about 20 to 25,000 dresses. I was making 20 to 25,000 dresses a week. That's 50,000 sleeves a week. That's a lot of sleeves. Those early 70s was, how can I say, it was Mary Tyler Moore, you know, was the first woman who was working and who was a single woman working. I remember there was also Marlo Thomas, that girl. I mean, it was the beginning of the emancipation of women. There was Gloria Steinem, who talked about, you know, liberation of women. Fashion was also very crazy. So my fashion wasn't very crazy at all. I was right in between the polyester and the very, very wild, wearing feathers and being bare, you know? So I found my niche right in the middle of it. And it was very interesting because there was nothing like that anywhere else. Women were wearing very hard clothes. The clothes, you know, a dress at the time would stand up by itself. My dress is rolled in a ball. So it was very unique, and it was not expensive, and it was easy, and it was practical, and it was sexy. So it sold, but it sold to a very, very wide range of women. The fashion climate when I started was definitely on an upswing, right? Because people were, it was a liberation, so people wore different things, but then at the same time I was both proper and liberated, so I was in an upswing. And I went back to New York, and I went back to America. And those years were probably, the next few years were probably the hardest of my life, because I realized going back that I had lost my identity, that my identity was so much relating to my work, relating to my brand, relating to my relationship with women, my consumers, that all of a sudden, coming back, I felt like I had fallen off something, you know? And it was hard. It was very hard. I tried to reactivate, you know, I tried to visit all these companies that still had my name in different products, but all of it had really disintegrated. It was not so elevated anymore. It was pretty bad. They really did not want to hear from me. And so it was really a very difficult time. I very much wanted to go back to design for that woman, even though that woman wasn't necessarily, I mean, I had aged, but of course I hadn't realized that I had aged, you know, I just thought I was the same. So I did not know how I wanted to do this wrap dress again, I wanted to do jersey, but I couldn't do that on television. And I did not know what was gonna be my entrance. I was kind of, and then all of a sudden, I realized that the young, hip girls, younger than me, my daughter's generation, were buying the old wrap dresses in vintage shops. And all of a sudden, what I thought was no longer right became very, very trendy. And as I was turning 50. And I thought, wow, how can that be? And I took all my knowledge of this wonderful jersey fabric that I had started years ago. And I went to my factories in Hong Kong, and I decided that I wanted to make that same great jersey in a silk, 100% silk knit. There was at the time a very hip little store called Scoop, and it was on Broadway. Everything in that store was black. Boots, combat boots and leather jacket, everything was black. And Stephanie Greenfield, the owner of that shop, decided to buy the dresses, and she put them just hanging there in the window, in the middle of black things. And I thought, she's nuts. No, she wasn't nuts. All the hip girls bought the dresses and wore them with, combat boots and things like that. And therefore, I realized that those dresses did not belong in dress department in department store. They needed to be with the cool young girls. And that's when the girl who had come and worked with me, Paula Sutter, she was very clever. She said, we should come up with a new department. And we invented a new department called Contemporary, where it wasn't the old dress department and it wasn't junior. It was somewhere in between, and it was the Contemporary. And that's where Theory came and a lot of other people. And it became the big growing business for the following 12, 15 years. I started again with that one dress that had brought me so much good luck. And that dress was still relevant. Mrs. Obama picked that dress in the same print, the link, black and white link, the same print as I wore on the Cube. She picked that dress to be the dress she wore on her first Christmas card as the First Lady. That's a big deal. 40 years later. When people ask me, like, if you knew then what you know today, what would you do differently? And I usually say I would have a business plan, because I didn't really have a business plan. The first time around, I just wanted to be independent, and I found these great dresses, and I was going to sell them in America and make a fortune, and I did. The second time around, I just wanted to show the world and myself that it hadn't been an accident the first time around, and I wanted to do it again. But I didn't really have a business plan. As the world is changing, as we are surfing the tsunami, as wholesalers disappears and stores are having difficulties and everything, to go directly, and as the technology of the internet, there is more and more the closeness with the consumer. So you need new business model. So now, for the first time ever, as I'm bringing real expert in my company. For the first time ever, after 40 plus years, I am actually doing a business plan and trying to shift a business model. Along the way, I did many things wrong. Many things wrong. Some I often associated with the wrong companies who tried to do things that weren't right for the brand. I had huge successes and huge failures. But the reason that I want to share it is to encourage people to say it's okay to make mistakes. And the only reason why I was able to survive is because I was always honest. I never lied. When I did things wrong, I said it. And I think that at the end, it's all about the product and the consumer. And the closer you put the product to the consumer, and the more authentic you are, and the more real you are, the longer you will last.